Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. What we'll be working on today is the Silverado. And what we'll be using today is kind of a combination of new parts and used parts from the Corvette. So the used parts, you guys will see that we have our Aeroforce Interceptor gauge, that's left over from the Corvette. We have this fuel pressure sensor gauge, that's left over from the Corvette. Then you'll see something here that says Aeroforce on it. And what this is a gauge pod for the interior of a 22.5 or newer Chevy Silverado. And you guys might be wondering, well, what are we doing with a gauge pod on the Silverado? Well, since we have the LT4 and we'll be eventually putting the supercharger on it, remember our 6.6 liter forged LT4, and since we'll be seeing boost at some point in the future, I was like, you know what, I want to know about it. I want to know the system functions. I want to know what's going on. And that kind of led me down the road of looking into gauges for the truck. I happened to be on Aeroforce's website and I happened to see that they had a gauge pod that plugs right into the oh crap handle that's on the side right by the driver's door. So I was like, huh, you know, that wouldn't look too terrible. My interior is black and these do come black. I think you can probably peel this sticker off and paint it if you really wanted to, but I've got a black interior. This comes black. Won't be an issue there. And the other thing is I have a free gauge left over from the Corvette, and what that is the Aeroforce Interceptor. This is the OBD2 dongle that goes with it, and that simply just plugs into the back here. Now, I don't know what version, so this says version 3.8.2. I don't know what the latest and greatest is from Aeroforce. This is several years old. I've already sent it in to get updated once. I don't know if I can get it updated again or not with the firmware on this thing, but that might be something that we do here in the future. But since I already had this gauge set, I'm like, you know, I think I could probably sell that for a few $100s. I bought that on eBay like 5 years ago. I think it was 300 bucks. And with that gauge, I bought the fuel pressure sensor kit. I think that was about 80 bucks. And then I bought the wideband kit. And I think that was another 100, 150, something like that. So, you know, I've got like almost $600 tied up into this kit between the gauge, the fuel pressure sensor, and then the wideband, which is sitting on my shelf over there. And I'm like, you know, I could maybe sell everything used for like maybe 300 bucks. And this is one of those things, it's like if I try to replace this with the other guys, like the Banks iDash, the gauge itself is like almost $500. The gauge pod that Banks sells, that's like another $100. So you're possibly looking at like $600 to $700 in gauges, and that's not even including all the aftermarket stuff. You know, I know Banks sells a bunch of stuff like EGT, IAT, pressure, wideband, all that stuff. Well, their stuff is very expensive. I think those additional sensors and then all the CAN protocol, they've got adapter harnesses and all that stuff. That stuff adds up really quick. And I think I priced it out. It was going to be almost $1,000 with everything that I wanted. And I think what I was looking at was a fuel pressure gauge. So we got that already. It was a wideband sensor, which we've already got one sitting over there. So like my two costs are, it's 100 bucks for the gauge pod or $1,000 for a similar setup from Banks. And I was like, you know what? I think we'll just go ahead, spend that extra $100, get the mount that we need, and we'll use everything that we already have. On the flip side, like I said, I could maybe sell the kit for $200, $300, and I would be losing half my money in it. So I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to be doing that. So let's just reuse what we already have. And I paid for it years ago. So to me, this is kind of a free monitoring system for basically 100 bucks just to buy this gauge pod. And with the mods that we have over on this LT4, it's got a cam in it, it's got a forged bottom end, and it's got CNC ported heads. We've got valve springs in it, obviously. We're never really going to need a full aftermarket ECU, and I think we can get by with what we have. And to give you a little bit of a preview, you have your Aeroforce gauge mocked up in your Aeroforce pod, and we will install this on the A-pillar like we said. We are fighting the rain. I apologize for being wet out, but you guys can see we've removed the lower panel, removed the side panel, And that's basically we're going to run our OBD2 connector from the Aeroforce, run it through here, up under the dash somehow, through here, and then up to the A-pillar, where we need to pop off these two trim covers. You're going to want to use a trim removal tool, get those popped off, and then there's 2 bolts behind there that you need to remove. All right, so you can see we removed both of the trim panels. We just used this little blue plastic trim removal tool, pop those out. There are 2 10mm bolts, one on the bottom, one on the top. We're gonna try to remove that. And then basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mock up the gauge, and then if you guys can look inside here, there's actually a hole. There's 2 holes. One is gonna be a hole for the bolt to go through. The second is gonna be where the data cable needs to run. And basically what we're gonna have to do is drill a small hole through this handle and then through the material that's underneath here. I think it's just the plastic A-pillar, and drill it through there. Now, I am not gonna do this in the car. We're gonna take the A-pillar out and do it. But I do want to get a mock-up of where everything needs to go. So we're going to take the bolt out, put the pod in there, put the bolt back in, and then I'm going to see if I can get a marker or something in there that will help point us to where we're going to need to drill. All right, you guys can see we have the pillar mocked up. The color is pretty close. I mean, you guys could probably see in the camera, it is a little bit off, but you know what, man? It's black. It's close enough. I'm not going to bother trying to repaint this thing. But did want to try to show you the hardware inside of there. You guys can see that 10mm is back in there. It is kind of hard to get to, I'll be honest. I actually end up using one of these flexible heads. I don't even remember where I bought this, but grabbed a 10mm 1/4" socket, put that in there. We were able to fish that in here and to get that to the bolt and then tighten it down. So yeah, what we got to do now is go in here and try to mark where the other hole is. I can feel it, but I don't know if I'll be able to get a marker down in there. This is a sharp screwdriver. Try to mark it with that. I've got a number of different tools that we picked up. Got a little pick here with a 90-degree edge that might help. I don't know. We're just trying to make them work so we know where to drill through this thing, because we don't want to be doing this twice. So that's those 2 different tools. Can we fit a marker in there? Actually, yeah, I think I will. So we'll try the marker. I'm sure it's going to be pretty ugly, but just trying to get an idea of where we need to cut. All right, now that our hole is marked, we got to take the 10mm bolt from there and also the top, and we should be good. All right, guys, we did get the A-pillar off, and honestly, the back of the A-pillar is only held in with 1 clip. I thought there was one down here, but honestly, there's not. And the best way to remove this from the truck is I actually stood outside the truck. I just kind of pulled on it, and this top clip came out. So we should be good there. We got to drill this 1/2" hole where the silver is, and by drilling that hole, that'll allow us to connect the OBD2 port to the gauge, and that'll allow us to get our data, power, and all that stuff. So, all right, so I just drilled that hole, and it took no time at all. You guys can see the second hole right next to the 10mm hole, and that is where we will feed our data cord for the gauge. And to quote Tom Hanks, if I was a smart man, I would go ahead and run the auxiliary inputs for the gauges. Unfortunately, I think one's still in the car and one is somewhere else. So I don't have the wires ready that we would need to plug into the gauge. So this will all have to come back apart at some point in the future, but not a bigger deal. This took me like 5 minutes to do. So yeah, we got our hole now. And guys, I thought we were gonna have to drill through the fabric, but no, it's just a plastic piece on plastic piece. Texture you're seeing, that is actually put into the plastic from the factory. So you can see we have the OBD2 port plugged in. I have run the wiring through the dashboard. I have run it up through here, and to get it around this black plastic piece, all I did was simply squeeze between the rubber gasket and the data cable, and it simply just fit right back there. And then I kind of just ran it out here behind the airbag, and then we'll eventually run that up through this hole. So all right, guys, we got the gauge pod installed. You'll be able to see that we did get our wire ran through there, and that's pretty much going to be about it for the gauge pod, like I said. And if I do pull on the wire that's in here, we are able to move this around. So if we need to, we can actually plug the gauge in out here, kind of feed it in, position it where we want, connect our data cable, then pull it back when we do the final install. All right, so you can see we have the Interceptor installed. Obviously it's not set up, but you guys can see we're going through the different gauges, and it has been shutting off. So it just restarted. I need to see what's going on with this thing. We might need to do a full like refresh, but yeah, you guys see that? It's powering on, powering off. So yeah, it's kind of the finalized mock-up, if that's what you want to say. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research on why it does keep flashing off, because it's like it's shutting off and it's doing a double flash. So I need to go look up what that is, and if we wait here long enough, it might turn back on. That's what I've noticed it been doing. All right, as for the rest of the panels, this one just slid right back on. This one we're gonna have to modify a little bit. Unfortunately, the OBD2 dongle is running right into this plastic piece, and so basically right here fighting for the same spot. So we might have to give that a little bit of a buzz. And as far as the placement, you know, it's not really taking up any more extra room from the dashboard. If you look back, you know, it's not really in the way, and it's pretty much directly right in line with the Baja designed ditch light that's back behind it. All right, guys, we did get you some daytime footage of the gauge. I just want to make sure you guys know what it looks like during the day. You saw it at night. All right, guys, stop the presses. We just got the gauge back from Aeroforce, and everything is working on it. So let's show you that now. Since it's not set up yet, it is. The Aeroforce gauge is different, and there are a couple new menus on here. So I have, the current gear does not work. I've just kind of messed around with here. There's a boost gauge, fuel temperature gauge, which, yeah, that doesn't look like it works either. Intake air temp, yeah, that's fine. Rail pressure, so that's how, the fuel rail pressure. And then there's actually direct injection rail pressure. So there seems to be two fuel pressure sensors, one for normal pressure, rail pressure, and then one for the fuel after the direct injection fuel pump. So that's good to know. Trans temp, alcohol percentage. Now, I don't know if the alcohol percentage would actually increase if we put anything E85 or E60. I don't know if that would go up. I mean, I do have pump gas in here. It probably is 10%. So if there's 9 or 10% alcohol percentage, that makes sense. Oil pressure. The only other thing I was gonna say, to set this thing up, you press the two buttons, press it twice, and you can go to setup. These are all of the different options that you can display on this Aeroforce, and the ones with the asterisk next to it, the star, those are the ones that we have selected. So intake temp, we said that one works. Throttle percentage, ignition advance, bunch of engine loads, rail pressure DI, those both do work. Alcohol percentage, that works. Current gear, let's deselect that. So you go to the one you want to unselect. We just hit the button to the right that turns it off, and the left button keeps moving it down. Oil pressure, oh, there's an oil pressure 2 sensor, interesting. So AEM AFR looks like it might have a built-in air fuel ratio for AEM gauge. I'm just not sure how that works, but I think that's about it. Fuel temp 2, that did not work, so let's unstar that one. And then analog 1, analog 2, those will be any sensors that you guys buy and wire in and run to the Aeroforce gauge. Now, I do have a wideband I could put in there. I also have a fuel pressure sensor, but guys, I saw 2 different indicators for rail pressure as well as direct injection rail pressure. So I don't really think we need a fuel pressure gauge. It's just one of those things I do have left over from the Corvette. The only other thing I wanted to add about that gauge is it seems to be that the 4 display is gone. I don't know if they got rid of that with the latest update. I want to say that gauge got updated to 2.8. I think the previous version was 2.5, or I will have to correct that down below. But they have flashed, and it looks like they've had 3 different version updates since the last time I sent that in, and that was like literally 6 years ago. So yeah, turnaround time on service was, they probably had it a week and a half before they got to it, And then I kind of reached out to about it. They said, oh, it's on the floor. Then I didn't hear anything, and then I got a bill, and I paid it, and then they shipped it back to me. So the firmware update was $35, and I think shipping was another $9. So it ended up being just like $47 with tax. I can't complain about that. We have a functional gauge, and I didn't have to spend like $1,100 for a bank setup. So yeah, that's pretty much gonna be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you want to see any more updates on the truck, the LT4, the supercharger project, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. If you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. I don't think I'll be able to get you a link to the gauge or the pod, but we'll get you some part numbers for that. And also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. We will have plenty of UC6 Corvette parts on there. And also check out our t-shirts, stickers, sweatshirts, all that stuff. And that's going to be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.